Canada's Foreign Minister, Minister Freeland, says she met with her Chinese counterpart in Thailand at the annual East Asia Summit. Freeland met with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang to discuss tensions following Canada's arrest of a Huawei executive way back in December and then the subsequent detention of 2 Canadians by China. Freeland says discussing those issues face-to-face is a positive step, and both her and Yi are committed to continuing discussions. So what does this conversation mean for Canada-China relations? Are they improving? Let's get some insight with Wang. She is the Deputy Director of the China Institute at the University of Alberta, and she comes to us from Edmonton. Jia, thank you for your time. What do you make of this meeting? Is it a positive step?
I think, generally speaking, any movement towards more dialogue between the two countries is a positive thing. So the Canadian Foreign Minister, Ms. Freeland, met with her Chinese counterpart in Bangkok. It's definitely a move towards the right direction, I would say, because nothing is worse than two countries in a frosty relationship where there's no dialogues, no exchanges happening. That's probably not in the best interest of Canada, but at least there's a bit of movement now.
But, you know, we saw the Prime Minister have a conversation with the President of China a few months ago, and hopes, you know, people had their hopes up, but then they seem to be dashed. Nothing seems to be moving, Jia. What's the holdup here? Is China just, all it's going to accept is the full release of Ms. Wang?
Well, there's definitely some calculations going on both sides, and for the Chinese side, and that's the sense of many that the Chinese really want to see Huawei CFO Meng Wanzhou released and not extradited to the U.S. But there are, certain things and certain parameters Canada would have to operate within and the legal process. So it's of course it's a positive move, but it is tough to say exactly what's going to follow. But at least the two foreign ministers have this opportunity to meet and to exchange views, and that hasn't been the case for the past many months.
Right. What else could Canada do, if anything? I mean, since last December, China's inflicted increasing economic pain on our country. It's blocked pork and beef exports. Soybeans have stopped. You know, buyers for Canada's canola seed have all but disappeared. And Canada has seemed frozen. What could it do, if anything?
Well, it's a million-dollar question, I guess. A lot of people are scratching their heads and trying to see if there's a way to get over this impasse at this moment. I believe if there are ways to still engage with the Chinese and through talks, through dialogues, to find certain solution or compromise that will move the relationship forward, it's difficult to say exactly what can be done at this point, but I believe dialogues and talks and engagement, perhaps through certain channels that not necessarily always in the public eye, might be a smart way to go.
So back channels, perhaps. But Canada even appealed to Donald Trump to try and intervene. But now it looks like his trade war with China is ramping up and relations are souring there. So we can't count on American assistance anymore, can we?
It is really tough. And as we all know, Mr. Trump can be quite unpredictable. And indeed, the U.S. and China are engaged in more trade talks, but really nothing came out of this most recent exchange of negotiations in Shanghai. And President Trump threatened to impose more tariffs on Chinese goods. So I don't know how Mr. Trump might want to play the Canadian card. I know Canadian Prime Minister already requested Mr. Trump to raise that issue with the Chinese, and President Trump said he did. But then the Chinese side kind of pushed back and said it's not going to be effective. So it's still bit of that kind of impasse. And unfortunately, the trade war, as you just suggested, between the Chinese and the Americans are not seems to be going anywhere very soon. So there's a lot of impasse and a lot of complication at this point. But we can always hope for the best. But I'm sure the politicians and experts are also trying their best to find some sensible solutions behind the scenes.
Well, a frustrating time indeed for the families of the men being held right now, but we appreciate your insight. Wang is the Deputy Director of the China Institute at the University of Alberta. Thank you.